For this tutorial, you're going to need 2 pieces of fabric measuring 12 inches by 15 inches. I'm using calico. You might know this as muslin. Or you can use a quilting cotton or any fabric really, and you can make this bag in any size using this method. So the first thing I'm going to do is fold over the top edge 1/4 inch on both pieces of fabric. And just a quick tip here, if you press it first you won't need to pin and it'll make it much easier to sew. So you can see I've sewn along the top, and this gives me a nice clean edge on both pieces. I'm going to flip these pieces over to the reverse side. And I'm going to take my ruler because what I want to do is measure down 2 inches, and I'm going to place a mark on both sides. Now this is where we're going to be sewing from when we sew our seams. So we just need a mark to know where to start and where to stop sewing, because at the top here is where we're going to be adding our cord to tie up the bag. Now the next thing I'm going to do is put my 2 pieces together with the right sides facing, and I'm going to line everything up nicely. And what I need to do next is I'm going to start with a back stitch at one end and sew right down to the end, and I'll do a back stitch there as well and then sew off the end. Then I'll sew across the bottom starting and ending with a back stitch, and then back up the other side and finish with a back stitch. So I've sewn around the bag and you can see the openings at the top on each side. And what I'm going to do now is open up the seam allowance and sew along the side of the seam, and then I'll sew across the seams just below the opening, and I'll go back and forwards over it a couple of times, and then I'll just sew up the other side. So let's see that in action. So you can see I'm starting and ending with a back stitch, and when I sew down to the line I'm going to leave my needle in the down position so I can pivot, and then I'll sew across and back stitch just to help reinforce it. And then I'll come up the other edge and finish with a back stitch. And this is what it looks like. Now we just need to fold over 1 inch at the top edge, and I'm going to pin it in place. And then I'll do exactly the same on the other side. So I'll fold it over 1 inch and pin, making sure that the 2 folded over pieces line up with each other, because we want this to be nice and neat when it's finished. And then I'll sew along the edge all the way around the bag with about 1/8 of an inch seam. And you can see how I've started at one opening, and I'm going to do a back stitch there just to reinforce that area, and I'll sew all the way around, and when I come to the other opening I'll back stitch over that, and then I'll continue to the end and finish with a back stitch. So you can see what that looks like from the front of the bag. Now I'm going to top stitch around the top edge of the centre sack, and this is optional but it does create a nice finish, and you can see what that looks like here. Now we just need to turn the bag through and add our cord. Now if you like you can overlock your edges or you can zigzag them. I'm not going to bother since it's just a quick gift bag. And you can clip the corners if you like, but I'm just going to poke them through. So there you are, that's all we need to do, and now we need to just add our cord. I've cut 2 pieces of cord, but you could use ribbon or a strong thread, and I'm going to use a safety pin at one end to help insert this into the bag. If you've got a bodkin that'll help make it a lot easier. So we just thread it through from one side, and when you get to one end you insert it back through the other side until you come back to the start, so you have 2 pieces on one side. Then you take your second piece of cord and starting from the other end you do the exact same thing, and so you'll end up with 2 pieces of cord on either side. And just a tip, if your rope or cord starts to fray, just add a piece of sticky tape around it. This will help to run it through the opening a lot easier. And there you go, our centre sack is complete. So if you've enjoyed this tutorial, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget, the written instructions will be over on alandacraft.com.